Okay, so hi everyone. I'm, as it is written, Estelle, and I'm working at Sen and Senelec as the OSD Online Standard Development Project Manager, which is the subject of the presentation today.
Yeah, maybe closer. So yeah, and my name is Gonzalo Estensal. I'm the account manager for production. As you can imagine, OSD will change the way that we deal with the documents handling process in Sen and Senelec, also in the work related with ISO and IC. And currently, I'm the product owner, and we are trying to transform the way of dealing with the standards development process, and that's what we are going to tell you about.
Yes. How do I? Oh, okay. So our agenda today, it's a short presentation compared to what you already experienced today. We will have a look at what is the OSD exactly, what we are trying to implement. Then we will have a look at why we are doing it, what are the benefits. Then we will show some mockups because it's a tool that we're implementing. And then we will talk about what is our project deployment timeline, so what is already available currently and what will be available soon. So first, what is the OSD? As I said, OSD refers to Online Standards Development. The purpose of the project is to help committees to draft higher quality deliverable using a collaborative authoring online solution designed for standard drafting. So in other words, because it's a long sentence, we are implementing a tool that has the ambition to replace Word in collaboration with ISO and ISC, both for Sen and for Senelec. And this tool can be seen as a sort of Google Doc because it's an online authoring tool to especially designed to draft standards. So within it, specific features to help the technical committee to draft the standards, and also rules of our internal regulation already included in the tool. So this is what OSD is about, and why are we doing it? We're doing it because we have an increasing need to transform our ways of working for multiple reasons. First, currently, when we're using Word, we have multiple versions of the document circulating offline. And with the OSD, everybody will have access to the latest version and a version history of the document. And so everybody in the technical committee will be able, the drafting body will be able to have access to the document. So it is now it will be only one single source of truth. Then it will change the ways of working of the working group. Indeed, today we are excluding some experts because not everybody has access to the document, or only some part of the TC have a look at it, because it's an offline copy that is circulating outside of meetings. In the future, the tool will allow, through a permission access process, to include all experts in the process. Then today we have a lot of work done by the secretary or the convener of the drafting body, and also a lot of work done by our internal editors, because there is no guidance or enforcement of rules embedded in the tool, which will be the case in the future tool. I will give you some example, but the features have been tailored to fit to match our internal regulation. Then the editing process. As I said, there is a lot of work necessary to transform the Word into a proper standard, done by both the technical body officers and our editors. Here, our editing phase will be streamlined because they will, the editors and the technical body officer will have access to the document to do some modification at various stages, but it will be, I would say, more fluid than exchanging document through emails. The next part is about the output. The document is no longer a docx, so you're not drafting in docx format, you're drafting in XML. It means that currently we have a lot of conversion errors impacting the XML quality that are bothering some of our members who are using the XML to produce their standards. Tomorrow, the document will be directly drafted in XML instead of docx format using the editor. So it will allow the document to be to have a better quality, obviously. And so it will allow our member to use this XML properly downstream. Administration. Today, as I said, we have multiple emails with multiple attachments circulating because it's a document attached. And tomorrow we'll have a tool fully integrated within Send and Senelec administration, meaning that depending on the stage you are, you will have certain access to the document that will change in the platform, but it will be more streamlined. But so what does it look like? So here I put a screenshot, but you can see that, so it's the same example with the ISO hosted by ISO. But as you can see, it looks like actually a word. We have, as you can see in one, several, I would say, parts of the tool where you can insert, for instance, table, etc. You have different tools, but the design has been thinking to look like a word. But it's not a word, because as you can see with the second part highlighted, we have specific features designed to draft standards. This one, for instance, is the normative referencing. You are, for instance, able, while you're drafting, to select a piece of the text and to link it to a normative reference using a library of all the reference that you can use. So all the ISC, ISO, Sen and Senelec catalog, for instance. So you have feature embedded in the tool that will help significantly the work to draft the standards. You have also things that you can't do with the tool. For instance, you can't add certain reference if it's not cited in the text, in the bibliography. The purpose of it is to also enforce the rules, because rules are complex, they are long, and not everybody knows them. So if the tool can block you doing things, it's also better to ensure that the standards will be higher quality. The third part is what is the main difference between what you will see at ISO and ISC level and what we are doing at Sen Senelec level is that so we will be hosted by ISO and ISC for Sen and Senelec, but you will have specific part of the document related to European standards. So as you can see here, we have a European forward that has been automatically created in the tool when we created the document. And you will also have specific annexes, for instance, the Annex ZA that will be included also automatically in the document to facilitate the work. So different templates if you're working for an international or for European standards, for instance. All what I'm describing, we have a sandbox available if you are interested to test and play with the tool that you can request on our website, on the expert site dedicated to online standard development, so you can play with all the features. Struggling with, yes. The second one I would like to show you is a screenshot of the commenting management. It's also something that is really appreciated by the project that I've tested the OSD so far, is that you have an interface dedicated to manage comments and proposal within the work of the committee. So for instance, here we see a summary view of all comments done, and we have some comments that have a status not accepted, some other have been accepted. You can go back to old comments earlier. You can see that you are not only making comments, you can also make proposals saying, I would like to change this by this. And if you click apply, it's automatically apply. So the idea is to facilitate the work of commenting within the working group and having a summary of all exchanges, what was accepted, what was not accepted, etc. Also, this is available in our sandbox that you can request access on our website. So that's it to show you a bit how the tool is working. So the idea is what I've shown you is the first feature that we have in the OSD, and we will go into a bit more detail into our timeline. But the idea is that the tool will be for the whole standard drafting process. So what I shown you about writing a standard is actually the first features related to what we call the authoring. So online standard authoring and workgroup commenting. But as I said, the whole drafting process will be available in the tool. So once the authoring is done, it will be possible, for instance, in the feature 3 to do the online CCMC editing work in the document. And in the second feature, it will be also possible to do the national member commenting into the tool directly. So only one tool with several access and rights for the whole process, and only one document. And everybody working on it. And that's it for me.
So, yeah, and just before you...
On the members commenting, currently there's a template, and I know from past experience, the national committee members have reviewed a document, submitted comments, and sometimes there can be very similar comments or opposing comments within the same national committee that are then reviewed, and it's decided which ones to go in. Quite often, those people are also on the working group. So when you say members commenting, that's the likes of the national committees imposing those comments in, not the actual individual delegates. Is that right?
So feature 1, like Estelle was saying, is focusing on the technical work developed by the TC, the working group. And during the drafting, there are also comments coming from the working group members, and this is where we are at the moment. So as Estelle referred to, one of the phases, and I will show you the next slide, where we are starting to get into is the members commenting associated with the public inquiry in the formal vote. And this is what you are saying. So when we go to the national inquiry, members need to consolidate the position, need to feed back in. So, and of course, what will come is the national position, and it shouldn't be a person position. Of course, this person may be involved later on in the working group, but should still remind and keep in mind that even if they are an expert, they should, as much as possible, try to bring what is the national position coming from their country. Of course, this is always a very delicate thing to manage, but this is how the principles are. So when, as you said, the member commenting phase, and actually there are already some pilots at the ISO level, and the overall idea is that members can also have similar features. This is where we are going to get soon, is to test this possibility that members can also have like a national possibility to have all the comments, and then someone can approve which comments to submit through the public inquiry. So this is the feature 2 that we are referring to here. That's I think that was your question.
Can I just add to that as a national committee? So in Ireland, we've been involved in some of the commenting pilots. And so at a national level, at least on the IEC pilot that we've taken part with, which will kind of be similar to this one, you can go in and put in all your national comments. So all your committee members, but then you can decide which one of those you want to accept and reject and make national. So we're all still working in the same tool, but on a national level, I only see all the Irish comments, but then I can decide on them which ones I want to make national comments, and then they'll be seen by the Sunlight group. So
yeah, the idea is the process that you're currently doing is not changing. Like you have a national approval at the end of which comment are going. It's just that with the new tool, they are trying to facilitate the way the commenting is done by providing by giving the possibility to do the commenting directly on the document, or you can still, depending if you ISO or IEC, import the comments, but the rules that are behind it don't change.
I have a question about managing of the group. because in my group, for example, I have some people that are usual for sending mail with comments, and then there is secretariat and send that they are putting in him. But now with this solution, my point is, may a technical officer make some comments for another guy, or the answer is sorry, but you have to put in, and you go into the site in the website, and you need to write. This is only an answer for understanding what is the instrument, but also the rules for managing groups.
You mean that, so you can get some feedback today via email or whatsoever, and then you need to feed into the document. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I have a lot of people that is writing and doing some jobs, but they are not willing to maybe manage interface, entering, registering, writing. So especially for experienced people that maybe have technical comments, but they are not used to work on websites. So that's way. So my answer is, for having the technical support, some people that is experienced, is it possible to have a solution that in which someone is writing and putting in a comment based on the idea of another guy and not only personal? Otherwise, maybe I have two possible solutions. The expert people goes out because they have two, or maybe someone has to write comments with another name.
So I think first of all, my assumption would be that my assumption would be that someone that today is involved in standardization is using a Word file and is able to provide comments on a Word file. Of course, we are talking about, and you'll see in the next slide, there will be a change management phase where we need to train people how the tool functions and how the work is supposed to be done. So if we remain on basics, ideally, this is not changing so dramatically, but I do understand your comment. I think, first of all, and I'll give you a little bit of more information later. So this is also a little bit of the work behind the scenes that we have been doing. We have been mirroring the process and defining, the principle is the same. Only the persons that are involved in a working group will be able to contribute to the work. This is driven by roles and so on. So this will not change. I think what may be important, and I think this is definitely the type of feedback that we need the drafting phase, is, is there anything that today you are missing in the tool that we should have? And I think, I don't know, Estelle, if you had received any feedback of this kind, but at the moment, that's the first time that someone is telling something like this.
I'm in favor of this, but my fear is that some people that have middle high rules that are in the commission maybe are not usual to making some data entry or comments in that way, participating in first person. So this is my only reality. I don't know what I can expecting for the future.
So currently we are working on a voluntary basis. So it means that obviously the TC that are applying for the OSD, we will talk about it, but the mandatory adoption of the OSD will be in several years. So obviously we didn't have that kind of feedback. However, if I understand, you receive comments via email, but you incorporate these comments into the documents, right? Or not?
And my feeling is that there is a sort of expertise. So in organizing work, there are some who has knowledge, sometimes have someone who's making data entry, and in that way will be no more possible.
Well, it will be possible as it is today.
No, I know that this is possible. I am not only I like it very much, because my answer will be, if you wanted to write something, please insert, but maybe in the long run we will have half of the expert sitting on the commission.
But you can still do in the OSD what you are doing currently to include the comments. You can put comments for other people, for instance.
And I understand your point. Definitely, there is a change in the mindset. All things are done, and everyone can contribute. And this is today maybe not the case. Maybe the working group convener or the secretary is the one taking the lead. Someone is commenting, and is the one taking the control. On the other hand, if you circulate the document for comments, and people provide comments, it's a similar process. So I don't think this is changing so much, but I think the main point, and this is definitely important for us to take on board in terms of the piloting, is that we need to be aware that there is a change in the way of working. Like Estelle highlighted before, the overall idea today is not to change dramatically the process. The way of working is not changing. In certain areas, in others, there are some things that we need to think, and we have been discussing this, but not in terms of the technical development. What you are doing today was already done. OSD in theory is just facilitating a little bit more of the task in terms of the management of the comments, the handling of them. But I understand that sometimes there are these, of course, we are aware that the more you get IT or more you get into some of using of tools, you can complicate access to certain things. That's for sure. And then
Just to maybe alleviate a tiny bit of the concern that's over there is that I find that to try and get experts to fill in the commenting template, it's like you need to know the line number and the paragraph and the clause. So there's a lot of information that they need to put in before they can actually put in their comment. Whereas on the OSD, you're directly inputting what into the text. So it's a lot easier. It's nearly like doing a track change in a Word document to a small extent. So it's a lot easier for experts to put in their comments once they are used to the system. It's a lot less onerous than it currently is to fill in the template. So just to add that.
Exactly, no, and that's true. Yeah, so this will facilitate the comment handling. Also, the same in dealing with the national members commenting. It will, in theory, facilitate this task. This is a big diagram, but I will focus mainly on the upper part. It's just to give you an overview of what we are doing. So, as Estelle highlighted, so the piloting on the drafting on the Sun side and on the Sun, like a little bit in the beginning, has been handling since last year. And at the moment, you see here, we are aiming at having one of the new features is the Sun editing possibility. So basically, today, when you draft a document, you send it to CCMC, we edit it in Word. Now, what we are working as the next step in terms of OSD is the editing on our side. So as a drafter of the document, OSD has some functionalities related to IR3, but not everything is embedded in the OSD as such. So there are still some tasks related to the editing that will be handled by CCMC. And this is the next step of our process, is to work on that. There is already, I would say, in terms of overall process, a big advantage. And some of you may have experienced exchanges with our editors. Sometimes due to the conversion Word XML, there are some constraints in the handling of the documents. This is definitely something where we hope and we see that this will facilitate, because we are working on an XML driven document. So we are skipping this export. So this will skip certain tasks. On the other hand, and I think this is also important in terms of the pilot on the drafting, maybe there are some constraints in terms of OSD today that they don't exist on Word, and or Word is much more flexible. So this is the part that we still need to keep an eye to understand how much resilient and sustainable OSD is in terms of dealing with all kinds of deliverables. And I'm talking, different types of tables with, with funny structures, embedding images, flowchart, different things all together in one. And OSD is a far more limited tool in this respect. So, which is also helping in terms of the drafting and the comprehension of the document itself. So this is the editing part on the Sun side will be around March that we hope to have it available. Then the commenting phase, the function already exists on the ISO side. So there have been, and on the IEC side as well, there have been pilots on ISO and IC, and we will be, I would say, more or less replicating what ISO and IEC are doing, but we need to consider what the members also want. And I think so. There are still some questions around that, but this will be the intention for May 2024 to have the feature to start public inquiries with OSD. And then overall, if you have this function, we will be ready to go through the overall process of developing the standard. And at the moment, the aim is to have a process that goes from the beginning until the end, available from March 2015 on the SEN side. As you see, there is a long development on change management. So for every step, we will continue making improvements based on the usage of the tool. On the drafting side, on our editing processing, for your information, we have not added any document on OSD. ISO, I think they started, but on our side, we haven't had the feature is not available yet. For the commented, we started two parallel projects, one in SEN and one in SENELEC, but there is no specific development on the SEN side yet. So this is what will come for SEN already next year. If you see the bottom part of the flowchart, there are a lot of things happening in terms of the definition of the rules on our side, in terms of the business modeling of the process. It's important. Everything, and I think there is a basic principle with OSD is that access is driven by roles. So when we are at the technical committee, working group, or TC, depending on how we define the roles, we'll have access to the document. When we get to the submission to CCMC, the TC secretary and all the experts will not be able to touch the document anymore. Then it comes to us. And in our editing process, we'll have access. There is, of course, the possibility to get it back to the TC secretary for some of the necessary modifications in line with what you do today. And then public inquiry, formal vote goes to the members. So this is a little bit how this needs to be defined behind the scenes. And I think we need to be very careful because this is changing a little bit how things are done today. We are not dramatically changed, but connecting everything to the roles may create certain limitations at certain points. So the roles need to be well managed. Then moving a little bit further and maybe faster as well, on SENELEC, the process is a little bit delayed. So we are starting the piloting on the SENELEC side soon. We had just had an exchange with IEC to be able to host drafting on pilots. And the process is pretty much the same. We see here the authoring and the editing. So the internal editing will be done in parallel with the SEN one. So this is something that we can progress. Then looking more already into 2025, the commenting features. Of course, this is SENELEC IEC. We go with this parallel elements, and the end of the deployment plan is later 2025. And the formal process from the beginning until the end will be already 2026. So it's a little bit further away. Of course, there may be possibilities to go a little bit faster depending on how we learn also with the SEN process. And all the main steps are pretty much the same. I will make a clarification, but I will cover it in the next slide. So you may think that at the moment everything is covered in OSD, but it's not so simple. So at the moment we are covering homegrown projects for ENs, TRs, DSs, and CWAs, because in terms of the lifetime of the project is essentially the same. We are excluding harmonized standards because it's a little bit more complicated. The process is not very, I would say, streamlined at the moment. And also with the involvement of the AS consultants, some of you that may be handling work in harmonized standards, the access to the consultants is today something that is not possible. So OSD is based on people having access to the tool. Today, we don't know who the consultants are, so we cannot actually use it as it is. So this is something that will come a little bit later. Parallel projects, it's the same, but it's not, because there are also different integrations to be done. With SEN, we started already looking into the parallel development for the Vienna Agreement. SENELEC, it's far more important. We are talking about 80% of the parallel work. So this is crucial to have a good alignment with IC for those works. And then later stage, and I think this is also an important information, amendments are not covered. So if you want to start OSD, it needs to start from a clean sheet. There will be, in theory, in the future, some possibilities to upload documents, but of course they need to be in line with the structure of the rules. So if you have a different structure, if for instance you'll have a clause 2 normative reference in a clause 3 or 4, this will not actually work or make a good import. So those are the things that you have to bear in mind. But of course, what we are talking about for parallel projects, harmonized standards, it's more a tweak of the overall process because the source of the OSD will be the same. Harmonized standards, we are eventually talking in the long term, specific templates for the different directives, specific template. Well, the Annex Z is already in, but we may define different templates for the different pieces of legislation, which will facilitate a little bit the drafting and handling of the documents. On the long run, if you would imagine, for instance, if you are dealing with a machinery standard, we may have some ad hoc specific guidance to be drafting. So this drafting could be embedded in the rules of the OSD. So this is the potential that we are talking about for the OSD. And of course, there is still a lot to be done in terms of integration of new rules in the system. Of course, if we embed new things, we may also create limitations in the technical drafting. I think this is something that you also have to bear in mind. We do receive a lot of documents today that are not necessarily in line with the drafting rules. OSD may start limiting a little bit more of that, but you also be able to see it more easily while drafting, which today you don't see with the Word file. Then, for the future, as Estelle highlighted, so in the Sentinel website, you can see, all the information about OSD. There is a regular OSD monthly session, so with updates. As Estelle said, in terms of the access to the OSD sandbox, so where you can try it out. Now, for SEN, we can already use. For secretaries on new TCs, I think it's really a wise decision to immediately jump in OSD if you don't have any content. Even for revisions, I think it's also important to bear in mind that OSD brings a lot of structure into the document, which will facilitate the editing of the document at the very end. In case you are a secretary, then you need to format and things like that. So this is something that is there. As I said, it's also important for us to know if there are technical limitations on the drafting. I don't think we had a lot of negative feedback, but I would be surprised that OSD will be able to handle every type of documents that we have today. And we have different documents in the system. If you think about an HD and things like that, documents that can tend to be very comprehensive and complex. Soon for Senelec, and of course we will inform the Senelec secretaries once the integration with IC will be done. And as I said, in terms of the testing of the new features, so we are welcoming any feedback. And as I explained through the flow, we are really trying to build up the whole flow of OSD so that soon we'll be able to start public inquiries with OSD. We'll be able to edit the documents ourselves, because at the moment, and this is just a side note, we export the file into Word, we edit in Word, and then we launch the public inquiry. As you can imagine, this is not the ideal situation for the project.
Yeah, and just to complement on that, if you're opening an OSD project right now because you're starting a revision or a new standard, obviously, we hope that when, according to the timeline, when you will reach the stages we are talking about, they will be available for SEN and later on for Senelec.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it that we had
to
say.
Do you have any questions?
Okay.
Yes. So the